God's will is perfect. One sin leads to hell, like not having faith, hope, or love for God's calling for their life. It's by faith you obey God. So they're meant to be a top percentage, full-time supermodel, talent, producer, full-time artist team as a stylist, celebrity makeup artist, celebrity hairstylist. And since high school, since 2005, they could have mansions in the Hollywood Hills as a hairstylist through celebrity sales. But things changed 2006, where they were replaced by minimum wage workers who were human trafficked in order to be the model as a satanic slave trade brand. And it's free slavery. It affects the top percentage. So they stole all the top percentage supermodels, talent, and producers checks and full-time artist teams, celebrity sales checks as the real bloggers for campaigns, commercials, theatrical. And they paid with the occult money, healthcare as a product of retail, to pay doctors, to pay all the healthcare, to pay all the military with their stolen checks, so they could use weapons against them. And so they have this technology as doctors, but I have stem cell with the best doctors in the world giving me a gamma knife. And it's because God loves me. And so they're human trafficking victims since the year 2000, and none of their families knew to pay the money, and they didn't even know that they would ask for more money. They just go along, trusting in God, living in the Spirit of God, and not planning ahead, not meddling in anyone's life, and not playing God for anyone's life. But they're meant to be the top percentage. So it's worshiping the other gods who own all the companies. But people have a choice to worship God. So they had to pay the 15 in a bank account or raise it through baby boomers and their parents. But they wouldn't get the money through millennials if they're poor. And they could raise the 35 through the baby boomers and their parents through sales for Arbonne, because it was Arbonne from 2000 till now. But if they didn't have the money, they'd have to know that they could live under their roof without expecting for them to be gainfully employed or to ever leave. Because if you're like me, you didn't have the 15,000 in a bank account. And so I had it through modeling from 2000 to 2007 to be able to travel. And they're the only ones who were able to travel, but all the other ones had all their checks stolen. So they had to have the 550 from each parent. And so right now, kids who come from divorce are human trafficked at the club because they're cut off from both parents, and they have to be taken care of. And my dad is in oil, but all their money was stolen in oil. And so they would have to have the money to live. But so would supermodels, talent producers since the year 2000 to have the 550 from both parents and through their network. And so it's actually the stable jobs when their money's stolen and they pay off charities to pay off stable jobs with the school owners. That's why I commuted where it costs $600 a month in order to go pick up my little kids from school, my mom's kids, who I babysat for twice a week. And so since I came home 2007, I babysat twice a week to raise them because I protected them from being in daycare twice a week when their parents work. And so it's really important. And so what it is they paid 10, but it would be 15 in a bank account to pay their car insurance and to pay for their phone. And my dad always paid for my phone when he can't afford it. And so the whole thing is that the parents didn't know this, but every minimum wage worker from their middle schools, Christian middle schools, is LGBT rights from being a prostitute at the club. So they've never heard of a family not having someone be LGBT rights from being a prostitute at the club, because no family knew to pay the 35 or raise the 35 if they don't have it. For them to work minimum wage, and it's like after 5 years, they might have to stop because it's 16-hour days from the city to suburbia, and it kills their body. So people need a surgery at 10 years from 16-hour days, Monday through Sunday. And so it makes it so that there's not enough for the employees. And so if they're called by God to be an employee, it's different from being the top percentage where they're not compared to that. And the anti-slave trade brand ones, the supermodels, talent producers, and full-time artist teams had to have the money when they're replaced by slave trade brands since the year 2007 with minimum wage workers who are human trafficked, who are picked up at their parents' house, where their parents believe in a cult, and they talk to the people who would human traffic them, believing a stable job is above them and worked harder, when they worked Monday through Sunday in 16 hours of traffic and wouldn't be able to take a break unless it's an upgrade. So they had to have the 15,000 in a bank account for the past 10 years, since 2007. But it's really the fact that they would have to have the top percentage money through all the people who make the 250 in this country to be the example for all the other countries, and they had to have the 550 as a referral to have more money, more than a manager, when they're recruited as supermodels, talent producers, to get naked because their parents don't pay. And it's through the doctors who drug them. So it's the healthcare is a product of retail. So if you're meant to do what you do, trust in God, but make sure there's no sin in your life. You'd have to know that it's God's calling for their life to be a blogger. They're not replaced by party promoting and prostitution, slave ship brand bloggers since the year 2007. They would have to be hooked up, but that's what happened. And they all came from suburbia. And they're not for sale with anyone because they would be with each other. And they wouldn't be one-upped by anyone because they would have the career anyway. So they have the career for campaigns, commercials, and theatrical to co-produce with the best in the world. But they could be married to a nurse, and it's a major problem. Because they are not gainfully employed, they would need the 15 in a bank account if they're really poor, and they would need it for life. But it's just the fact that the top percentage of people who make 250 would be paying 550 for all of them to save their lives.